The fluorescent lights of Davidson Technologies' main conference room buzzed overhead as I sat through another excruciating board meeting. My father, CEO Richard Davidson, was droning on about quarterly projections while my brother Michael kept shooting smug glances in my direction. 3 years ago, I'd presented my AI-driven supply chain optimization system to this same board. They'd dismissed it as unrealistic and too ambitious. Now, here was Michael presenting my exact concept as his own groundbreaking innovation. The Davidson chain system will revolutionize how we handle logistics, Michael declared, using the very words from my original presentation. Early projections show potential revenue increases of 300% within 18 months. I kept my expression neutral, though my hands clenched beneath the mahogany table. The other board members nodded appreciatively, completely unaware they were watching a stolen dream in action. Outstanding work, Michael, our father beamed. This is exactly the kind of forward thinking we need. My stepmother Patricia, who joined the board after marrying Dad 2 years ago, was practically glowing. The Davidson name will be synonymous with supply chain innovation. I pulled up the private investment portal on my tablet, hidden from view. The stock purchase was nearly complete. 3 years of careful planning were about to pay off. Now, regarding the position of head of innovation, Michael continued, straightening his designer tie. I believe we need someone with more traditional business experience. I knew what was coming. I'd known for weeks, thanks to the cleaning staff who'd overheard their planning sessions. Being underestimated had its advantages. People spoke freely around the quiet son who couldn't handle real business. James, my father turned to me, his voice carrying that false concern he'd perfected over the years. We've reviewed your performance, and found it lacking. I finished for him, my voice steady. How surprising. Michael's smile widened. The board feels your experimental projects are consuming too many resources. We need to restructure the innovation department. Restructure, I repeated. You mean terminate my position and absorb my team into your new Davidson chain division? Now, James, Patricia interjected with artificial sweetness. There's no need to be dramatic. We're offering you a position in sales. It might be better suited to your capabilities. I checked my phone. 9:58 a.m. Perfect timing. Before we continue this fascinating discussion about my inadequacies, I said, perhaps we should address the ownership notification that should be arriving right about. A chorus of notification sounds filled the room as every phone and tablet received the same alert. I watched their faces as they read. Breaking Summit Ventures acquires controlling interest in Davidson Technologies' parent company. What is this? My father demanded, his face reddening. I stood slowly, straightening my jacket. Summit Ventures, founded 3 years ago after a certain AI-driven supply chain system was rejected by this board. We've been quietly acquiring shares through various subsidiaries. Impossible, Michael sputtered. Summit Ventures is owned by James Summit. I finished. Amazing what dropping your last name and working under a pseudonym can accomplish. I turned my laptop around, displaying the ownership records. As of 3 minutes ago, I own 51% of Gateway Industries, Davidson Technologies' parent company. The silence was deafening. Patricia's perfectly manicured hand trembled as she reached for her water glass. My father's face had gone from red to pale. You can't do this, he whispered. Actually, I can. And I did. I pulled out a stack of folders and began distributing them. Inside you'll find the preliminary audit results. Fascinating reading, especially the parts about intellectual property theft, insider trading, and some very creative accounting. Michael jumped to his feet. You've been spying on us. No, I've been conducting due diligence as a major shareholder. There's a difference. I smiled. Though I did appreciate how the cleaning staff kept me informed of your little schemes. Amazing how invisible people become when you think they're beneath you. Son, my father started, his voice taking on that manipulative tone I knew so well. We can discuss this. Oh, we will discuss it. At length, I pressed a button on my phone. The conference room doors opened, admitting a team of auditors and legal representatives. But first, these individuals would like to review some documents. And Michael? I turned to my brother, who had gone very still. You might want to call your lawyer. Intellectual property theft is a serious matter. The next hour was a blur of activity. Board members were escorted out. Files were secured, and computers were locked down. I watched from my father's, now my office, as Michael was walked out, his designer jacket thrown over his arm, his face ashen. My father was the last to leave. He stood in the doorway, looking suddenly older. Why didn't you tell us about Summit Ventures? About your success? Would you have believed me? I asked quietly. Or would you have tried to take that too? He had no answer for that. The company meeting is at 2 p.m. I told him. I expect all senior management to attend. We're going to discuss some significant changes. After he left, I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out over the city. In my pocket was the original napkin, where I'd first sketched out the AI system, 3 years ago. I'd kept it as a reminder of that day, the day they'd laughed at my little startup idea. My phone buzzed. A message from Sarah, my head of operations at Summit. Acquisition complete. All systems go. Congratulations, boss. I smiled, remembering all the nights we'd worked late, building Summit from nothing while Davidson Technologies dismissed us as irrelevant. The cleaning staff, maintenance workers, and lower-level employees who'd helped us understand the company's real operation. The investors who'd believed in us when my own family wouldn't. The company intercom crackled. Mr. Summit, the auditors need you in the financial department. Mr. Summit, not Mr. Davidson. I'd chosen the name as a reminder of where I was headed, to the summit of the industry, while they remained trapped in their own arrogance. On my way, I replied. Straightening my tie, time to rebuild this company the right way, from the ground up, with people who understood the value of innovation, hard work, and respect for everyone, regardless of their position. As I walked through the offices, employees stopped and stared. News traveled fast. Some looked afraid, others hopeful. I made eye contact with Maria, who'd been cleaning these offices for 20 years. She gave me a small, knowing smile. Things are going to change around here, I told her, loud enough for everyone to hear, starting with a complete review of employee wages and benefits. The whispers started immediately. Good, let them talk. Let them see that the quiet son they'd underestimated had learned more than they'd ever imagined. At 2 p.m. sharp, I stood before a packed auditorium. Every employee, from senior management to maintenance staff, was present. My father and Michael sat in the front row, their expressions carefully neutral. Some of you know me as James Davidson, I began. Others as James Summit. Today I want you to know me as someone who believes in this company's potential. Not just at the top, but at every level. I outlined my plans for the next 6 months, implementing the real AI system, not Michael's stolen version, reviewing all departments for efficiency and fairness, and establishing a new company culture based on innovation and respect. For too long, this company has operated on outdated hierarchies and artificial barriers. I continued. That ends today. Every employee, from the CEO to the newest hire, will be evaluated on their actual contributions, not their titles or connections. I saw my father flinch. Michael stared at the floor. Those who've earned their positions through hard work and innovation will thrive. Those who haven't, I let the sentence hang. Well, change can be difficult, but necessary. As I concluded the meeting, I caught sight of the cleaning staff standing at the back of the auditorium. They weren't invisible anymore. None of us were. The real work was just beginning. But as I watched my family file out of the auditorium, their power and arrogance stripped away, I knew one phase was complete. They'd stolen my idea and kicked me out. So I'd bought their company and shown them what real innovation looks like. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just success. It's success that transforms everything they thought they knew about power, worth, and what really matters in business. The napkin with my original design was still in my pocket. I didn't need it anymore, but I kept it anyway, as a reminder that every great change starts with a single idea, and the courage to pursue it, even when your own family tells you you're not good enough. Tomorrow we'd begin the real transformation. But today was about justice, served cold in corporate style. The next few weeks at Davidson Technologies, now Summit Davidson Enterprises, were a whirlwind of change. As expected, Michael tried to fight back, first through legal channels, then through desperate attempts to rally board support. I proceeded to lay out everything, how my AI system had been stolen, how I'd built Summit Ventures in secret, how we'd acquired controlling interest. But more importantly, I shared our vision for the future. This company's strength isn't its name or its legacy, I declared. It's the people who work here, every one of you, and it's time we recognize that. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Employees who'd felt ignored for years suddenly saw a path forward. Innovation teams that had been stifled began producing breakthrough ideas. Our stock price, after an initial dip, began to climb steadily. 1 month after the takeover, I received an unexpected visitor. My stepmother, Patricia, walked into my office unannounced. "James," she said, attempting her usual sophisticated smile, "we need to talk about the family's reputation." I let her stand there, noting how different she looked without her usual air of superiority. "The family's reputation," I repeated slowly, "or your reputation." She flinched. "Your father built this company." "My grandfather built this company," I corrected her. "Dad inherited it. There's a difference." "The board votes tomorrow," I finished, "on removing both you and Dad from all positions of authority. The evidence of mismanagement is quite compelling." Her facade cracked. "You can't do this to us. We're family." "Family?" I stood walking to the window. "When you and Michael stole my work, was that family? When you planned to demote me, was that family? When you dismissed every idea I had, because I wasn't aggressive enough, wasn't ruthless enough, was that family?" "We were trying to toughen you up," she protested weakly. "No," I turned back to her. "You were trying to force me into your mold of what a businessman should be. But here's the thing, Patricia. Real business isn't about being tough or ruthless. It's about innovation, respect, and understanding that every person has value." I handed her a folder. "Inside you'll find a generous severance package. More than you deserve, honestly. I suggest you take it." After she left, I visited the innovation department. My old department. The energy was different now. People were excited, engaged, unafraid to share ideas. "Mr. Summit," a young developer called out, "we've made a breakthrough with the AI system's predictive analytics." I spent the next hour reviewing their work, remembering how it felt to be dismissed and ignored. Never again. Not in my company. That evening, as I prepared for the board vote, Sarah brought me one final report. "You should see this," she said, smiling. Our stock had hit an all-time high. Employee satisfaction scores were up 60%, and our innovation pipeline was fuller than ever. "Your father and stepmother are trying to call an emergency shareholders meeting," she added. "Apparently they've found some concerning irregularities in the takeover." I laughed. "Let them try. Everything we did was completely legal. They're the ones who should be worried about irregularities." The next day the board voted. It wasn't even close. Richard Davidson and Patricia Sterling Davidson were removed from all positions within the company. Michael had already resigned, his legal team trying desperately to negotiate a settlement over the intellectual property theft. As I watched them leave the building for the last time, I felt no satisfaction, no joy in their downfall, only a quiet certainty that justice had finally been served. "Sir," my assistant interrupted my thoughts. "The new innovation team leaders are ready for their presentation." I nodded, turning away from the window. The past was done. It was time to focus on the future. "One more thing," she added. "That maintenance worker you promoted to systems analyst. His team just developed a breakthrough in the AI's efficiency protocols." I smiled. Another invisible employee, whose talents had been ignored by the old regime. The company was transforming, becoming what it should have been all along, a place where innovation thrived, where every employee had a voice, where success was built on merit rather than manipulation. They'd stolen my idea and kicked me out, thinking they'd won. Instead, they'd given me the push I needed to build something better, something stronger. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't just winning. It's winning while transforming everything they thought they were protecting. 6 months into my leadership of Summit Davidson Enterprises, the corporate landscape had shifted dramatically. Our stock value had doubled. Employee retention was at an all-time high, and industry publications couldn't stop talking about our revolutionary approach to corporate culture. Then the first attack came. "Sir," Sarah burst into my office one morning, her usually calm demeanor shaken. Michael's launched a competing company, Sterling Innovation Technologies. I looked up from my reports, noting the name, Sterling, my stepmother's maiden name. Of course, they're claiming to have developed a next-generation supply chain AI. Sarah continued. But that's not all. They've been approaching our international clients, offering significantly undercut prices. I pulled up the news on my screen. There was Michael, standing beside Patricia and my father, announcing their new venture. The headline read, Davidson family returns with revolutionary tech solution. Have you seen their investor list? Sarah asked, sliding a tablet across my desk. I scrolled through the names, feeling a familiar tightness in my chest. Every major competitor who'd ever had a grudge against Davidson Technologies was there. My family had spent months building an alliance against us. They're calling it the original Davidson innovation, Sarah added, playing on nostalgia and family legacy. I leaned back in my chair, remembering something my grandfather once told me. In business, your worst enemies are the ones who know your weaknesses. Call an emergency board meeting, I instructed, and get me the latest client retention reports. The next few days were intense. Several major clients, swayed by Michael's aggressive pricing, and my father's long-standing relationships, were wavering. Our stock took a 10% hit as the market reacted to the new competition. But I'd learned from my years of silent observation. I knew how they thought, how they operated. During the board meeting, I laid out our response strategy. They're betting on old relationships and cut-rate prices, I explained. But we have something they can't match, proven results and actual innovation. I pulled up our performance metrics. In 6 months, we've increased client efficiency by 45%. Our AI system has saved companies millions. And most importantly, we've built a corporate culture that attracts the best talent in the industry. But the Davidson name, one board member began, is just a name, I cut in. What matters is results. Release our full performance data to all clients. Show them exactly what they'd be losing by switching to an unproven system. Then I revealed our ace in the hole. Remember those patents I filed 3 years ago? The ones my family dismissed? I smiled. They cover every fundamental aspect of our AI architecture. If Sterling Innovation is using anything similar, the room erupted in understanding. Michael hadn't just stolen my initial ideas. He built his entire new company on technology I had legally protected. I turned to our legal team. How long before we can file an infringement claim? The paperwork's ready, our head counsel replied. We've been monitoring their development since day one. The next morning, as Sterling Innovation Technologies celebrated their launch, they were served with patent infringement notices. Their stock, barely a day old, plummeted. But my family wasn't done fighting. They launched a PR campaign, painting me as a ruthless usurper who'd stolen their company. Industry magazines ran stories about family betrayal and corporate warfare. That's when Maria, our head of facilities management, came to me with an interesting discovery. The cleaning staff at their new offices, she said, a knowing smile on her face. They talk a lot, just like old times. The invisible workers, seeing and hearing everything. Through this network of overlooked employees, we learned that Sterling Innovation's AI system was barely functional. Michael had rushed it to market, counting on our father's connections to buy them time to actually develop the technology. Instead of attacking them publicly, I made a different move. I called a press conference, but not to discuss the lawsuit or their accusations. Instead, I announced Summit Davidson's new employee education program, fully funded college and technical training for all staff members and their children. Success isn't built on names or traditions, I told the cameras. It's built on recognizing and developing talent at every level. The contrast was stark. While Sterling Innovation fought patent lawsuits and struggled to deliver on promises, we were investing in our people and expanding our technological lead. One by one, the clients who'd wavered came back. Our stock not only recovered, but reached new highs. 3 months after their launch, Sterling Innovation Technologies was in trouble. Their rushed AI system had major flaws, leading to costly errors for the few clients they'd managed to secure. Investors were pulling out. That's when I received an unexpected call from my father. "We need to talk," he said, his voice lacking its usual authority. In person, I agreed to meet him at a neutral location, the small diner where I'd first sketched my AI system idea years ago. He looked older, tired. The failed launch and pending lawsuits had taken their toll. "You've won," he said simply. "Sterling Innovation is finished. Michael's investors are demanding their money back. Patricia," he paused. "Patricia's filed for divorce." I sipped my coffee, letting the silence stretch. "I had to sell my house to cover the legal fees," he continued.